broadcast. Today we'll be discussing the presuppositional argument and what it is. Pretty much everybody else is actually what the argument. So yeah.
Hey guys, anyway, sorry, this is off topic. It's just with my dog here. It's not nothing to do with the hangout right now. It's just outside trying to find a place to discuss it. So, yeah, sorry for this. I just think atheists don't understand the presuppositional argument. They fallacious just kind of, yeah. Other things when they use all this shit like their reason, they're just proving the argument right there. I mean, I don't understand. I could do any better, but like I literally could, and I think I could do worse trying to if I actually could refute on because a different presuppositionist, but like as a different or actually like evidence or whatever, and then evidence is an argument, so it goes back. But yeah, yeah, I support the person, all that shit. So yeah, it's good to them. Anyway. Let's put some people in here. Yeah, that was kind of confusing, the whole thing about the hangouts being like different times, whatever. I would say it's kind of hard to follow these discussions sometimes, And like as a theist, I don't really care about these discussions. I don't really care about like in the end result if it's just all subjective, or even if it's objective. Sometimes it's hard to live in that reality. It's a lot of So it's so subjective, but it's easily one. I live in it all day according to them, so I'm not right. So whatever I say is lies. I don't really care, so I don't say anything. So I'm saying, so whatever. So it refutes their whole worldview. If that presenting it as true in their own world, we would prove it, versus prove it false anything else. Because the statement about it, it's like, being subjective. So you can't even know that that's true. Because it's subjective, and if the world has nothing to do with subjective itself, and they say, oh no, it's because we're subjective, right? Like, you know what I mean? So it might be with ours, but I said objectivity does cover over, so subjectivity doesn't. It's like the atheist kind of doesn't really have anywhere to go for like. It's like a rationalist or free, or an empiricist or naturalist, you know what I mean? So secularist. So I mean, yeah, that's kind of the thing. Here with this. Oh, we haven't been on every hangout. No, because I don't really watch Google Plus things, or look like Google Plus or see it, or so yeah. I just don't care. I mean, I'd rather go on to phone. If I do Google Plus and something, I'll be able to do it. I don't think doing on the phone is really great though, but yeah, okay. Alright, if you're on one view, you can come in, right now, if you want. The topic is the presuppositional argument. An atheist, yeah, pretty much, an atheist pretty much, yes, I don't know. So that's the topic for this discussion, this hangout. So my name is Brian Bollinger. You can come in anytime you want. Yes, if you don't. What else? Nothing really say here much. I left. Yes, because of the discussions, but No, geez, you know, I just, you know, yeah, yeah. Okay. Alright, is this mentality? Let's to come over here. Yeah. Yeah, like the purposelessness of just, oh, suck. Maybe I would have not said like that, no. Right? So, that's kind of the point. You know, it actually, when you know presuppositionalism like that, you know, by that, you know the certain things, but they just when they say about it's like, what do you even care about talking about this? I mean, obviously, I don't deny these people are intelligent and all that stuff, all that bullshit, right? But like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean I am, or, you know, this is that makes a fucking difference, obviously, to them. It's still false. So, you know, I don't really care. I don't even think that's any different. I mean, yeah, being intelligent or not, or whatever, and all that shit. Being, yeah, so that doesn't help me the way this will see it, the way this. So, yeah, so it's not. But the presuppositional argument actually doesn't just cover one thing. It covers one thing entirely on its own. But it yeah, it's fears. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. The whole entire issue. You know, so they just have to do the whole thing away with it to get rid of the argument, not just, you know, presuppositionalism and then presupposition and then, you know, presupposition, or to, you know, do all this. It doesn't do anything to get rid of it at all. And so yeah, it doesn't really do anything. I think the part of it is not because it's even irrefutable or anything like that, maybe, or even if it was, there would make a difference. But they say the atheists, they say that still will make it false or true, or true, false, yeah. So I mean, I really don't get what's the point of it. It's just saying the same bullshit over again and again in your life. Like, you're just repeating it. Like, yeah. Like, everybody does this. Everybody to me and to them, and it's like, it never stops, man. It's just too much, you know. That's why I really don't really care about theists that much, because, you know, I'm not an atheist. You know, the only ones that care about theists, so. You know, people care about atheists, usually theists, right? Because, I mean, if they're talking to people that are outside their, you know, the claims, right, that they make, that would be more interesting to talk to those people, you know, not to the people who are theists. Right? That's not ever interesting. But more interesting to talk to the atheists, not when you're an atheist either, though. The stones with this, and it's the save it, it's the hangout thing, whatever else. And then you're the, you know, you're gonna want to talk to the atheist, or if you're the theist and the atheist, you're gonna talk, you know, to, you know, the atheist, you know, or the atheist in from the theist, you know, right? And you're gonna want to talk to them, and then shit, and it's this whole, yeah, it's gonna be a whole different thing, right? So everybody has to come down at like this theist, right? Or theist, yeah, you know. So I have to kind of get it in terms of so definitions, but yeah. Oh yeah. So I don't know. I just wanted to discuss, I guess, I just wanted to discuss the presuppositional argument. Actually, it states that, I guess one of the things, but when they just, one part when they drag it up to the first part of the argument is right, but the presupposition everybody knows the truth already, right? So, yeah. And as a theist, I should take these arguments not lightly, or so lightly at all, because if that would like indication, that would imply that I'm just doing it for that reason. Like, I'm only basing it, theism, on evidentialism and evidence, logic, reason, science, philosophy, theology, religion, like all that stuff, like, itself. And then that's it. That's all it is. It's just enlightenment kind of, philosophy and kind of thinking, and then that sort of logical kind of thing and all that shit. But it's not based on just that at all. So we make sure that presuppositionalism is not something where it bases it on it. I know, like, unlike most of the apologetics versus the evidentialism, the kind of the philosophy or whatever, it's more of just actually finding, it's all about the evidence and this sort of thing. Which you would think presupposition, meaning it avoids it, meaning it can't deal with evidence, because it deals with, because it lacks evidence as being important in it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't see evidence, or see evidence as viable, reliable, at least true in cases. Because then that also means that evidentialism would have to see what that presupposition view would see. Evidential view from presupposition would see what the evidential view would. So evidential view would see a presupposition toward this sort of thing. So it's kind of both. You get, when you're one way, both, you get the other. You kind of presupposition gets kind of evidentialist kind of vibe, and then evidentialist kind of gets a presuppositionalist vibe, because it's, opposite viewpoints, right? So yeah, and moving the goalposts is just everybody's feel. So yeah, okay, it's funny when they make this argument against theism. Like, there's a lot of different ones against Christian theism, Islamic theism, but like the basic arguments for the existence of God need to be defined and defended, and something has to critique. Actually, I will say they would need to be critiqued, analyzed, checked over, and all this shit. You need to have that, because then the atheists think that when they do it, it's the only ones who've been doing it for the longest time. The theists, even if they do it, the atheists would say that's not objective. That's just subjective. Or if it ends up being objective, we don't like that view. We can't tell that view. We can't see that view. We can't figure out the view. We can't tell all that shit about that view. You know what I mean? So no, when we were theist response, obviously all that, it doesn't work. Okay, so I mean, well, yeah, that's the point. Because theist has to bear in mind that just because you put evidence first and the rest last, after, doesn't mean you're gonna get less likely to claims true or false, or undecided or false or whatever in any order, actually, to me. And that means a lot, because instead of being to the atheists, when they look at it, it's either you get this, and then this happens, or this happens. Even the same words I'm using, they'll still reject that. They want, they want the truth. They don't want anything else, right? But all the time. But I guess that's the point. I'm tired. I've had breakfast, guys. I'm sorry. I just didn't have breakfast yet, and I'm tired. I'm sorry. Sorry to shit out. But yeah, I don't enjoy doing hangouts anymore. I deleted one. I'm gonna delete the rest. They're all gonna be gone eventually. Happy days. Yeah, people have been doing hangouts forever to me, and not doing hangouts, just not doing either or, it's been all YouTubers, but just all bullshit to me, because I've been on, and I haven't been on news, and they haven't. They're going to be on for years, and it's not going to matter. They're not going to be, it's like, it just doesn't matter to me. I don't care, really. Like, people's lives and opinions on this shit. And because I care about all this shit, in the sense that I can reach on there. But, it's like kind of funny. It's because of the atheists, presupposition. I don't like to just response to them all, or to make them state it. It's just that I don't think it really sells anything. I mean, you can't tell them that. They're not gonna reject that. They're just gonna go wrong with it. They're gonna accept that. I don't know. It's just like, it's kind of funny. You use this stupid shit against them. It's supposed to be the sophisticated, tales of rational, empirical, logical arguments, and then the atheist just goes, well, that's nothing compared to what I am about. anything else, because we can do all this shit without the need of a supernatural God behind it all. But that's not my point saying there is, and I don't want to say that, but like, they just think that, the atheists, because they already assume your position long before it even comes along, because they think that when you have your position, you have to think, oh, you have the belief and the assumptions and all that before you have the evidence, and then that's wrong, ipso facto, right? Like, I mean, because it doesn't work with the scientific method, it doesn't work with all that shit, so it doesn't work with verification, falsification, or, what's it? Yeah, pretty much. I think I missed this. I got it. No, but yeah, it's so it doesn't go through there, and then it doesn't, maybe, right? Theistic belief, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's not true, or justified belief, or maybe it's something else, maybe it's around, maybe atheism is, but it's not, because the atheists are the ones who talk about all this all the time in this so-called consistent framework where it's like all you can move it all down. And so I guess if the theists don't, why do they care about talking to the theists? If all the theists do or have and say and discuss and all this stuff and pretty much everything is just faith, and why do they care about it? The atheists, that really strikes me, obviously, in some place, and where it's like the atheist means to say is that they actually do believe that a God exists, or the existence of God, or whatever, but they won't admit it, and they're just ignorant, or arrogant, and irrational, and unintelligible to, that. So, but I'm just saying, I just think it's kind of funny when theists have to go forward. I think it's funny too when theists have to go forward with this, just for the thing, and it's their plan of, so I just don't get it for anybody. So yeah, you can just come in right now, you fucking one viewer guy. Jeez. Like, who the hell is watching this here? I'm not watching it anymore. I can't be watching it, or I can be. Whatever. I decided, but, yeah, I could, let's see if I can get. And, what's the saying about the atheists? Like, oh yes, the not Dillahunty side 10 brewing can't debate. There's no other topic. Oh yes, the topic. I know it is. Is a belief in God, reason, or whatever. So yeah, that was the topic. Matt defendant saying no, and saying that. Here's the middle. So I guess it's not really anything new or different. I'm trying to even say they make old things new, or new things old, but I don't really think it matters anyway. It'll still be whatever. Just can't put a finger on it. Hey, J-Dubs, how you doing? Trying to hear you here. Oh, yeah. Okay, alright. Okay, sorry, that was just a random viewer coming in. Alright. Yeah. But no, yeah. But I'm just saying. Yeah, I think actually it's funny because they would say that, like, the atheist, oh, because he's talking to you because he's a believer. That's unstreamed. But I would say that oh, he's talking because you're an atheist. It's like, if there was, it's like, it's the same thing. It's all just bullshit. I don't care who would talk to, if they're believing it, I don't care shit, but it's like, the atheist would say the same thing. Oh, no, I'll just go on with this, and like I had, it's like, oh, it's like, But like, I don't get, it's just so funny when people just seriously get on this. And, like, everybody needs to just stop saying this same thing. Of course, the atheists will defend each other and love each other. All this kind of bullshit they all suddenly get. Like, everybody else does get it, okay? Everybody else gets this bullshit. Everybody else gets it. Except for you, because what you do, atheists, is you pretend it's all fucking subjective and a fucking stand still. Fucking and you think it's funny? Oh fuck, I guess it could be objective because everybody gets it. That's still fucking subjective. Get it? Ooh, no, the theist view of it being objective and subjective around everybody. And that's wrong because that's bullshit. But it's it's actually objective. Nah, that's wrong. It's just stupid. I just hate these people. I hate everybody sometimes. Sorry. Let's apologize. Sorry about the outburst. Yeah. This hangouts even really about this, This hangout. Something about this sometimes. But yeah, I hope I can get more people in here. Yeah. They're gonna be like, "Are you there?" And they're just like, "Yeah." Anyways, I know I've been claiming that a lot of my videos. I don't like to come back on it, So I like to just pretend I don't say that, but I don't really care about saying it. So, like, to me, I don't really give a shit. Yes, like it's. Oh, not again with the link. Damn it. Hey, fuck. I'll just give you the thing right here then. Come in, for Christ's sake. Sorry, that was inappropriate. I didn't mean to say that. How do you comment on a thing though? Because it can't be displayed on this thing. Okay, wait. Okay, I'll go on this first, I guess. Wait, see if I can invite the Brexter in. Oh, I know what to do. Just do it like this. I'm gonna make sure I just do it the other way. Yeah, I was thinking about this one. So we're gonna do it the copy and paste thing. Hey, man, how you doing? Hello, my guest. What's up? Hey, you're on. Hello.
Hello there.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
So, you want to talk about stuff?
Yeah, I was gonna talk about the presuppositionalist argument. A lot of atheists don't understand it, I guess, to my view.
Could you refresh my memory on what the presuppositional argument is? There's so many arguments,
What? Sorry? Oh, I can't hear.
Could you refresh my memory a little bit? What is the presuppositional argument? Tell me.
What was the argument? The argument is that it's about. Oh yes, it's that all worldviews, other than the Christian worldview, it's a lot of different descriptions. I'm just trying to give you one, but other than that, are false because they're based on a presupposition that goes according to Scripture, I guess. So they go back to the Christian worldview, and then what the Christian worldview has to go around and say, like, all these worldviews just come in back to my worldview. And thus, why they're false is because they rely on the presupposition that the Christian worldview doesn't rely, which is their own, and then the Christian one relies on the Scripture, which is supposed to be divinely inspired, right? And theirs don't. It doesn't. Sorry. can't speak today. Sorry, it's just
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that all other cultures and stuff, they presuppose things, but the Christian worldview doesn't. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, but okay, I'm saying that, but I'm going to be careful. I know what you're going to say, but I'm saying yes, the Christian worldview does inherit a lot of this stuff from the other cultures and all that. That's where I think the argument's more supported, because it's not like, oh, the Christian worldview just sprung out of nowhere and then just said you're all the same, presupposition, right? All that stuff. It didn't just happen like that, and I don't know if that's going to be your response. I'm just saying if that's somewhere
Well,
where people
my
are
my
adamant.
response is that with every different religion, it has a different worldview, and all of those different worldviews, usually religions come along with some sort of holy book and some sort of theological text that is usually worshipped. So usually the presupposition would be that their own distinct holy book would be correct. So I mean, I'd say that the Christian worldview has presuppositions, and that all other religious worldviews have presuppositions also.
Yes, but I'm saying the whole thing about okay, I want to make a little bit of thing about the position of the atheism. Atheism's been around since even longer since Christianity has. I mean, they've been criticizing religion since a long time. I'm sure you know that, and they've been making the same argument against. Well, not really. They care about it. And they say now the modern atheists are like, oh, the other gods, who cares about them? Everybody else knows. Nobody, you know what I mean? So they're just funny. They're like, oh, let's just add this god to the rest of them because we're just, But it's funny because they've been making that since a long time, and I just want to say they've already made it before even these cultures even arisen. So it's like you can't say, oh, but the Christianity's coming along before anybody else has a chance to say anything, and then they've made the narrative. No, they haven't made the narrative. The narrative of the atheist has been on longer than the narrative of the theist has, I think, because the atheist is the one who says it's never existed before, so why would they need to come to that conclusion afterwards? They already would know that that's not the case, even if the theist says, oh, yes, that is the conclusion that God exists. They don't already agree with the theist. So being there, it doesn't matter if there is gods and religions and all that in the world. That doesn't matter. The atheist will still try to say that's not correct or whatever. I don't know what word to use. I'm trying to.
Uh-huh. So wait, could you maybe
Saying
like simplify that a little bit? Like, what are you
well,
trying to say?
disbelief doesn't. Yeah. So when people say, "Oh, the suspension of disbelief," to me, I say the suspension of belief, not suspension of disbelief. You don't suspend disbelief. You suspend belief, because belief is not something you just say. Yeah, I just choose it because if I reject it, I would be I disbelieve. But that's I would go after that. I would go to I don't know. But I don't think that's you don't have to have the three choices like a lot of people think they do. And I think a lot of people, everybody makes that mistake, even me. So I'm just saying um, it's kind of not helping with this discussion. Whatever people are talking about these days, with this whole issue about um, atheism and theism, Gnosticism, and all that stuff and the rest. But I don't know, because I really don't know because when people are defining, like when atheists, when they talk about, oh, we're gonna make, let's say oh, you're God, and then versus this funny like unicorn thing, and then the flying spaghetti monster thing, and then the square, all this stuff, and then all these other concepts, they're just as valid and all that, and it's like, dude, what the hell? If you're the one who seems to really hate this thing. You argue against it so many times, but you're the one who wants to just bring it down so easily to discover it. Like, you want to bring it so down so humans can discover actually what a God is, because without it we couldn't know one, or we couldn't, we don't have a grounds for believing one, or even, believing one because it doesn't matter, or, the question's not even open, because we would have to, first build, so I just don't think, that's just, to me, it's just, I don't know.
Well, I mean, like the flying spaghetti monster, it is a joke, and it was coined in
Yeah.
like 2005 by a guy who was trying to argue against prayer in schools.
Yeah.
But basically, the point of it is to show that uh, you can basically use the same arguments for the theistic Christian God and sort of change them around a little bit and make them really ridiculous, and you could still prove the same thing. And it's sort of like the
Well,
same arguments.
okay,
It's
but
a
I'm saying,
satire.
okay, I understand that, but I'm just saying, why do the atheists care whether somebody proves something or doesn't prove something? Like, I guess that, to me, that's kind of, I don't know. I mean, if
Right.
I was to say, like, yeah, that's what they think they just do. They just think, oh, we're gonna go and prove something, or because I could, I could actually just prove it, so you would have nothing. And it's like, yeah, but you don't understand how there's a totally different. You have your own philosophy. Like, like all atheists are naturalists, or physicists, or whatever. They're materialists. Maybe some of them are all this. that's all built on the same thing that the other theistic philosophies could be. So I'm just saying it doesn't really mean anything new. And also that same thing theists could say to the atheist. And I would say that's wrong to say that to the atheist, because that's assuming you're the only one making the positive claim. And I'm saying that's not true, because the atheists claim that, oh, that doesn't exist, or there's no, or oh, there's one, no, that's improbable, or whatever. That's the same positive claim, because you're still resting on the assumption that there's no God. I'm still resting on something that there is. I understand that, but
Okay, here how about we get into a discussion here? Let's define truth first. Okay, so can we both agree that truth is just simply the label given to certain propositions of whether or not they're true or not, and basically, so whether or not something is true is if it can be demonstrably shown to be true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And can we agree that the purpose of belief is for it to influence our actions? So basically, it's called pragmatism, basically, and it's an epistemology, and basically everything must have a pragmatic reliability to it. So basically, what it's saying is that you should, for your beliefs, they should have some sort of reliable outcome that you can predict. And basically, if you believe something's going to happen and then it doesn't happen, then that belief would be wrong. Can we agree on that? That what can be what belief is good is the one that can usually be used and in the real world. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So my problem with the claim that there is a God and the belief in a God, and more importantly, the belief in religion, is that I don't really see how me believing in a God or being a part of a religion would have any important pragmatic outcome on my life.
Well, I just want to say, what's the point of me joining? Let's say I'm going to use a little. This is going to be a red herring, but let's say, oh, what's my point of me not joining? Why should I join communism or fascism or all that? Like, I'm saying it's kind of the same vibe that you're trying to say religion. Oh, but religion. Oh, that's the same thing as communism. Therefore, we can't create that relation because we're safe. We can just say that. Like, people are going to understand that. That makes sense, because there's a very few ideologies that are really actually the same with atheism. I have to admit, there's a lot that are, but there's a lot with theism that I wouldn't like. And the ones with the ideologies that agree with atheism are really like, oh, they look so great on the inside and the outside. Everybody would like to view this. I'm sorry, even theists. You can't say that theists are afraid of this view about, oh, communism and reduction. I'm going to go something further. Let's go to reductionism, where you just rip all the parts of everything together down. You can't say, oh, theists are afraid of arguing with that. They argue with that all the time. You're saying they're afraid of it? I don't see that. They know
I never said they were afraid of anything.
The atheist is the one who comes on, later and says, hey, look, you've all been liar. You didn't understand my point because I'm still trying to say something. Yeah, we know you're going to say something because we'd also like to be in your shoes. Everybody wants to be an atheist. Everybody wants to say this about, oh, this is great. We still have a lot of things to go, but we're going to be great. We just make up rules and they're subjective. Oh, but they can be objective to everybody, but they're still in the end subjective. Whereas my view, it's objective, and then it rounds to people in a subjective way, but it's also ultimately it's objective. So that's how I work it. And yeah, it's confused in other ways in the media by everybody.
What is objective? What is objective? Yeah,
I guess
truth,
I wouldn't want to say
morality.
Yeah.
Both?
Reality and morality and what should I say? It's truth. Yeah. Well, science has to be objective, does it? Or philosophy and I guess other.
That's
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I would say that, like, when it comes to science, there's objective measures of which that you should follow when practicing with science. But
okay, but I just want to say, don't you realize if science had subjective measures, you would be an objectivist pretty much, because you said that as it has objective measures, but you're subjective, as in your viewpoint, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, just because science works objectively doesn't mean that scientists believe in like objective truth and stuff like that.
So,
because it's a way of getting to an outcome where we can support a proposition to be true, which then can be demonstrated to be true again and again through scientific means. Okay, so that is that is
Yes.
subjective truth,
Right.
because we can't really know that everything around us isn't some like brain in a vat or the Matrix or something like that. But what we do know is that we have no real reason to doubt the reality of which we live in, because it
Yeah.
has constantly uh, followed what we know about science and the laws of physics. So we can make the assumption that reality exists. So that's
Yeah.
my idea.
Yeah. I'm just saying, but I'm gonna go off topic completely here and talk about, there
Okay.
was a video I did, right? You know what the video is, I think, right?
Hmm.
Um, the response was giving on your channel. It wasn't on mine. It was somebody, just random person who commented, and it said, "Wow, people would lose more brain cells than they would watching a G-Man's video. So I guess I'm more retarded than G-Man, or are you saying G-Man's retarded? I guess, or if a theist says that to an atheist, a bunch of them are retarded. I guess that's false, because you can't say that to an atheist, because the atheists are holier than thou, I guess, on YouTube and everything else. So
No, no. I mean, you can say whatever you want to say to anybody. I mean,
yes, but
there's a thin veil of anonymity. Yeah, I can never say that word right. If people are anonymous on the internet,
oh yeah, anonymous, yeah.
stuff like that. So when I make videos, I am trying to entertain my audience, and I'm not trying to insult anybody, really. I
Look,
mean,
I
I
tried
just
to, yeah, I
yeah.
know, and
Mhm.
I had the same
Uh,
kind of thing back then, but I'm sorry, I'm just saying, sorry.
mhm. And when they're responding to it, it's like that they may say, well, your video. They may think that your video was stupid. I think
Mm,
that's fine for them to tell you that. And
listen.
but I wouldn't say that they're held to any higher standard. I mean, there's a couple atheists on YouTube that even like do criticize other atheists, like
Well,
Ryan Wiley and people like that.
well, dude,
So
seriously, I mean, okay, I want to say though, when I was back then, okay, I remember being, going on YouTube, and you have like freaking every atheist would be like it would just be like death, like people would just be like killing each other with like arguments and everything. It'd be like, holy shit, like, you expect to love that, because you have to love that, because that's just the atheist community, it's like, you can't just, it's like, oh, to reject that is to reject reality, apparently, like, I don't understand that. It's what atheists really do. No, they don't do that, right? We're supposed to believe that they don't do that, though. Okay, I don't think most people define an atheist as like somebody who's like a brilliant, scholar and all this, who's a genius and everything, and he's always a great, he could just, everybody else that comes up to him, he just loses every time they talk to him. It's like, that's what people think atheists. They don't think an atheist is somebody like a witchcraft, all that. That's just some new kind of like bullshit stereotypes that comes right out of the atheist community about their own kind of like status in the world, because they're afraid that they used to have a lot of big influence back in, like, the old, what's it, like Russia and all that. You think, oh, people, yeah, okay, they're still believers. No, a lot of Russians, are you kidding me? Loads of atheists. Atheists are everywhere, man. And not just like one little thing, and then they somehow group over there and be like, yeah, we're over here. Discover us later, 50 years later, down the road. Then in America, oh, the first atheist guy there, and it's like, that's kind of not surprising to me. I mean, it's kind of like what anybody else does, right? So,
well, I
I mean,
mean,
yeah,
an atheist is simply just somebody that lacks a
yeah,
belief in a deity or deities. So I wouldn't say that. Sure, there's cultural perspectives also of the whole Charles Darwin type stereotype of being an intellectual and stuff like that. You don't have to be an intellectual to reject the idea of a deity's
oh,
existence.
yeah. But I'm just
Yeah.
saying, when okay, I'm gonna bring your point, but I'm saying, when an atheist does say that, what he said, and then they go up to like a theist, they go on a Google Hangout like you're doing right now, and then they say, hey, let's try to, we'll talk about arguments, but then they defeat their own purpose when they talk about arguments. They don't really, they just said that they don't care about arguments, and they go in and they talk about arguments. That's what this one guy, I can't remember his name, in True Empiricism's chat said. He's like, when you use your own worldview to try to prove your own worldview and it's false, you go back like, oh, it's false, and you're using that to try to prove it's all true, right? Like, you're trying to like say, like, when he was talking to one person, the global atheism, he was talking about determinism, right? Because how could if your actions are all determinism, right, or determined, you couldn't tell that determinism is true, because it's already been determined that your actions would lead you to believe in determinism, or I can't remember the term. It's like with scientism. It's not a charge. It's not a ploy to use against atheists. It's actually real. Everybody has scientism, kind of like, science is the only way to answer everything and all this shit. bullshit. Like, you know what I
Well, I
mean?
mean,
That's what I'm saying.
I will continue to trust
And that's yeah.
scientists that are professionals in their field study until there's some like new way of understanding the knowledge of the universe around us. Because I mean, science has been the only one that has really like actually worked. Uh, Also, everybody
Okay,
thinks
well,
that
sorry, I
atheism
want to say
isn't a
something.
worldview.
Sorry.
Secular humanism is a worldview.
Yeah.
So there's a
Okay.
lot of secular worldviews, you know. So.
Okay. But I was just gonna say, but did you expect religions to work out? Then why would you say, oh, they already failed? But you already knew that they were gonna fail, or you didn't expect them to pass or fail anything. So you're gonna just come to me and say, well, they've already failed, and yes, they have. If I would admit that, yes, then what I'm saying is like you already you didn't expect them to even be true. Like what I'm saying, the method of working out, actually trying to have results. Like that's
I
what I don't
mean,
get when people say that about, oh, the difference between science and religion is, oh, they're button heads, diverse. You know, if science has all this and religion is this, and oh, religion tries to replace science. Religion never tried to replace science. Religion actually fucking helped science. And then if religion didn't have, science didn't have religion, be like, huh, what are we doing here now? Discovering all this, it's just boring. It's just like same thing religion and religion. And the people in there, they would say the same thing without science. You don't get that. That's the whole Albert Einstein thing, like what I just said. And that's true. Actually, you think most people wouldn't like to admit that, but that's true. You know, I'm
mhm.
sure that's, yeah,
Well, I would say that
yeah.
science, you know, like you say that religion isn't trying to replace science, but I think like the whole how people are trying to like teach creationism in schools and stuff like that. I think that is you know trying to replace the science, obviously.
Okay, but I'm just saying that the creationists are misrepresenting Genesis 1. So just to tell you that, and that they're wrong. So they can say, oh, without the fall and everything else really happening, that Jesus' resurrection and all that wouldn't. Well, no, it could still happen with the evolutionary process, and I don't agree with the criticism at all. Literally, you know.
I mean, really, for me, just the whole concept of the Abrahamic God just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, if you take Genesis, even if you take it as a parable, I think if you think about it a bit more and think about the implications of his actions, it kind of falls apart under scrutiny. I mean, let's think about it. Like,
Dude, but
God knows everything, right?
yes,
Okay, so
yeah,
he
but
he knows everything. So he knows the future.
what? What? Sorry.
Does God know the future?
Yes, past,
Okay.
present, future. Same thing as
Okay.
actually.
So
See.
God already knew that when he put humans on the earth with the fruit, that they would be tempted by the snake, and
Yes,
that
but
then they would fall.
yes, but did they remember they have free will to decide good or bad, right? The tree of whatever it was in the apple, right? To choose that decision, right? To
So
eat
so
it.
did so basically did
Yeah.
free will at the time was that like so basically anytime somebody enacts free will, does that just fuck up God's understanding of like how the universe how like the future and stuff? Because that could get
No.
pretty irritating for him.
Hey, but I was gonna say, there's a lot of times. Okay, I just want to say, there's a lot of times there's different parts. Like atheists talk about like natural disasters. Like, why does God like to happen? Allow that to happen? It's like, is all volcanoes, hurricanes, thunderstorms, are they evil? No, they're natural evil, and then there's a difference between moral evil, which is like like genocide, murder, war crime, all that shit. That's moral evil. They should be able to tell the difference. Other evil too. So when you come up to somebody, you say that to them about, oh, they're gods, all this. You gotta remember, like, you can't just be like, oh, that's if they had free will to decide between good and evil, then oh, they chose. Oops, their God made the wrong decision by choosing evil. He knew that they would choose evil, so all this would happen, but it's his fault. Unlike it's not our fault when we do the same thing to our own planet. We do everything. We fuck up. We make up our own man-made disasters, and that's our own fault when we make actual natural disasters happen more, occur more rapidly. And it's like people don't understand how that's our own fault by doing that, and it's because of our world's not perfect. It's not falling. Okay, and it's the same thing with if you really like actually what the science says. It started out as a fight, as a freaking melt the rock, a meteor slamming into once in a while. This what it started out to as the Earth, and it was the same thing. It's the same thing as it being starting from death and all to the rest, right? Because it doesn't start out just it's life, and then all of a sudden it falls over like it doesn't start all perfectly like that. Like it's all like Oh, if it goes the other way, it's the fault of the creator because he was the one who made it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a stupid response. I hear that from atheists. So, just
Well, I
saying.
mean, if he's all loving, then he must have some desire to make all the pain and
He doesn't
suffering
have
go
desire
away in the
though.
world. I mean,
He doesn't have. He's not. He doesn't have desire or anything. He's not a human. Humans have desires and all
okay.
that. God has nothing a human has, or a human has nothing God has.
So God does not care about us.
Does he have to care though? Yes, we have to care. We say right, but
No, I
does
mean,
that
like
mean
he
care?
must
No,
have for
we don't
God to
have.
care about us, he must have a desire to see us like live happily.
He already knows we're gonna. Yeah, I can't answer that. Sorry. No, you know. Does it need to caring? Okay. Do we need to care about other people for them? You know, to yes, but because we're humans, though we're not like. You're imagining like this is like we're asserting simply that God created man. You switch around and say man created God, and then you're gonna go with this argument from that, and you're gonna be like, yeah, yours is the same thing as my. The validity of what I'm saying is, ugh, same thing, buddy. It's like I really don't think so. Don't move the goalpost against me, buddy. I don't think that's gonna work with anybody. You don't work. I don't do that to atheists. I don't think they should not do it to me. It's fair, actually.
Uh,
Sorry.
so
What?
so do you think that
Yeah.
God is all powerful?
Yes. But you have to use the
Okay.
terms rightly. He's also eminent, transcendental, transcendent. Sorry. And the rest. So you can't remember just he's all loving, all blah, 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 and then come to that, and then when the theist says he's also this, and you ignore that, it's okay. But I guess you gotta remember that's also immanent and transcendent. So
So
right.
wait, is he omnipresent? Like, is he
Yeah.
everywhere?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so he's omnipresent. But
Yeah.
I've heard from a lot of Christians that he's also spaceless and timeless,
Yeah.
which would mean that he
You
would
have
not
to.
be omnipresent.
You have to be. How do I say? Do you have to be timeful and spaceful to exist in the world? And to
Well, I
be
mean,
being in the physical, do you think he's in the physical world literally, and then he could still be in transcendent? That's what you're not
okay,
realizing.
so in a metaphysical sense, he
Yeah.
is omnipresent.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean the time.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
So wait, how would you define like omnipotence? Because this is a problem that is like have you ever heard of the paradox of
Yes.
basically can God create a boulder that's too big for him to
Yeah.
lift? I'm sure you have. Yeah. Well, basically, what that really is some people treat it like a gotcha question, but it really isn't. Well, all we're trying to do is we're trying to get you to define your terms a bit better. So is omnipotence is omnipotence? Is it like more like whatever it is logically possible for God to do, and it also is in His nature to do?
Yes, but you gotta realize it. Okay, if it was logically impossible for him to do it, would that mean that what's it? Okay, being logically possible to lift a rock so hard that he couldn't lift it. Like, that's assuming that, yes, we can't lift a boulder that we can't, like, we can't lift a boulder that heavy. It's not because we can do it or we can't. Like, I'm saying, it's kind of like, you're saying the same thing when they go about, is it logically, like, is 2 plus 2 equals 4 all the time? Is it objective? Yes, 2 plus 2 equals 4 all the time. It doesn't equal 5, 6, 7. It's based on, no, it's based on the mathematical system we just used. Or we invent another one that has other answers that 2 plus 2 equals whatever, and then we come back to 2 plus 2 equals 4 because we assume that one. That's the whole point of it being subjective, which I don't agree with. So what I just said, like, it's not okay. And like the point about raise a rock so hard you couldn't lift it, like, um,
It's basically to simplify it. It's just can God create a task that He cannot perform? Basically.
yes, but you're saying that will logically contradict his attributes, right? Or
Yeah,
when
that would logically contradict His attributes unless you
okay,
redefine omnipotence to mean something that is
but
logically
wouldn't
consistent
it?
and also in His
Yeah,
nature to
sorry.
do.
Wouldn't it not just logically? It would also do other things contradict. Like it would also physically contradict. Not just logically, because you can't just go from that. I understand you would probably do it differently with other attributes. Like obviously, you would probably say about transcendental. You'd probably try it out with like, space outside space of time in the universe. Well, how does that make sense if the universe? Why can't the universe exist on its own? Why can't the universe exist on its own? Because how would the multiverse and the omniverse and all the rest exist on its own if it's an endless set of time? It's all an infinite series and blah blah blah. It goes on for like so many times. It's like infinite all this. It never has a beginning, end, or even not even a middle. Like doesn't even have a where it's not either or. And if it's just going round and around, it's not ever. I can't even say this because it doesn't make any sense. That's right. That's why it's not an argument against, like, trying to point out to it. It's not trying to point out anything when you try to say about, oh, because the God can do it. That's not even the point. You can't argue from an infinite regress of events, right? Like, you can't say, oh, if we could just, because we're finite, we would think that it might be an infinite series of regress, but also a God can't be outside of it. It has to be inside of the events. So, but you're saying it being outside, that's just wrong because we're just saying it's infinite.
I never said that the God was outside the universe.
No, I'm just saying I hear that from a lot of it. Like there was a, sorry, I'm gonna go off topic again. There was a hangout that somebody was in. It was a guy named, was it Dustin Seegers, and there was another guy, I can't remember his name. And he basically said was his whole other guy's whole worldview was about like how a God can exist infinite, right? Like it can't be infinite because why can't the universe be infinite? Why can't anything else be infinite around, And what he responded to, that's what I was trying to say. So, sorry, I just kind of said his whole response to that. And my response again, though, would be, see, I don't really need to talk about that sort of philosophical argument. I don't really rely on philosophical arguments. I mean, to me, they're just muddy, So I don't really...
Well, okay, but I mean,
yeah.
if we go back to the omnipotence thing, it's that even if you do, this is another problem, is that even if you do redefine omnipotence to mean anything that is logically in its own nature to do, and is basically anything that it can do that is logically consistent and is in its nature and is possible for him to do because of his nature, I can say that I'm omnipotent then, because I can do anything that's not restricted by my nature and that's logically consistent with reality. So, I mean, it doesn't... It muddies the water here.
It's not restricted by your logical capability, not by logic itself and all of it, though. Like, your own capability to do it is, well, I guess I'd say logical, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, is God beyond logic?
And how would that be? And are we, okay, so I'm going to go into the question, are we beyond logic in the sense that we have to go out into the world and say, this is logic, reason, and this is the best way to find out everything? I'm not putting God there and saying that's just God of the gaps every time we go out to see things. And what you're saying is, what did you actually say? Sorry, I got.
I said, is God beyond logic? Is he does he transcend the logical capabilities of this universe?
But I'm saying, okay, if you agree, yeah, he transcends the whole universe. Would that mean everything in it would be logic? All that would pretty much be everything. Yes.
So he could lift a boulder that is too heavy for him to lift.
No, but you're asking, because he's also transcendent, that he would directly interfere when he's not supposed to, because he doesn't just directly interfere, and then he doesn't just become immanent, like he doesn't just come in and be like, okay, and then comes back out like if he already has an immanent kind of presence right in the world before, afterwards. But the reality is of being, the thing about being transcendent is being existence outside of that. So like you can have that sort of, you could still be both. And what I'm saying is, being able to lift a rock so heavy, like you couldn't, that it couldn't. I'll say, let's just find like that. I guess like he couldn't, it couldn't, whatever. What could it? That doesn't mean that therefore they're logically impossible for that God to be yeah, sure, I can't remember. Yeah, so.
So your answer is yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about all the other religions?
What I think about the religions, well, I like to say, just don't ask me so much about like the terms, because I'm going to use a lot of terms, but I think in a sense that they're true. But the second point I'll say is, I think also that there's false, but also in the end I think they're true. What I mean is that they're all true because they're all progressive revelation, right? But then on the other side of it is that they all sort of like have their own, like it's all their own thing, right? They have their own organized kind of thing, right? And it's all their claim of like, release, right? So, but at the end of it, it all comes down to the same sort of God or religion, right? So, but like being it, even if it's like after the religion that start, like like Islam, right? For instance, right? So, or Baathism,
are you a Christian though?
No.
No.
I don't like to play. I'm saying, but I am just a theist. But I that's what I go into, right? Obviously.
That sounds a bit like Baha'i.
What?
Bahrai is it's
Oh,
from India, and it believes that like all religions are somewhat
yeah,
equal.
Bakra. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I mean, I, do you think that like the books, the holy books, are divinely inspired?
Oh, I know if I said yes, you'd probably say if they're inspired, does that mean they have to come from a God who inspires them? And I'm like, okay, but that's not
Well,
the
I
point.
wouldn't
If
say that. I was going to go
oh,
along the lines of you know, I was going to say like, okay, well, if they're inspired, like I was going to say like if they're all inspired by God, I mean, why couldn't God just write down like one singular book that would contain like infinite amount of like wisdom, and it would
I
contain like
wanna,
tons of scientific truths that were far beyond the people that ever got it at the time. I mean, couldn't he just
I just
make a
want to
book
frame
like
it to
that?
you. I want to frame it to you. It's this is compatible with you know how like how evolution says we're pretty much, or it's a science, we're a young species still, right? Technically.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not big on
Yes, technically we're
evolutionary
young. We're
biology.
only about like, well,
Okay.
not years. I want to say that. But I would say this too with the scripture. That contains information. The same thing. Like, why can't God just write in DNA, "I'm here"? Well, is that? Oh, and that's the same thing. Oh, well, that seems like that would be a use of time, like you're saying with all the holy books, right? But to me, we have to use different things to kind of figure that out, right? And also, I'm just saying, there's a lot of time for that sort of thing to happen, like a different revelation, like just special revelation, progressive revelation, all the other revelations are all compatible, you know, in the same degree. But like what I'm saying is, I know that's confusing, but I'm just saying, why couldn't he just do that? Why can't he? You know, that's a good question. I'm trying to figure out how to answer it. I'm just stuck here. I don't know.
Mhm.
Good question.
And another thing is that like, how do you deal with like when religions contradict each other? I mean, like, how do you just chalk that up to tradition or what?
Um, no, but when they contradict each other, it's kind of because there's some sort of interpretation is our doctrine or wrong thing. I don't know, going on, right? Yeah, like yeah. But I've heard a lot of times, Brexter, that a lot of times people say like, oh, because religions fight each other and they kill each, or they hurt each other, or they pretend to live in peace, right, for only a few periods of time, or they share ideas or they steal ideas from each other. Like that's, I know what you're trying to get, like why they contradict each other, like you know what I mean. So like
No, I'm just wondering about
yeah,
your explanation. Like
but
for
like
instance, the
I know
Hindu
what it,
story of creation is like
yeah.
wildly different than like the Christian one. So I'm just wondering how you like how what you think about the
Yeah, but I'm
contradiction.
saying like yeah, if the religions like um if they shoot, I can't remember what I was gonna say now. Crap. No, because I just thought about when you were talking, when I was saying it, and then you went on about that. Okay, I can't. Ah, I'm lost now. Fuck. Oh, I don't know what I was gonna say. Damn it. It's about like because the religions shit. Okay, what? Can you answer the question again? I fucked up. This is
Oh, I asked like how do you explain like the contradictions between the different religions? Do you just like chalk that up to being because of tradition or being because of like cultural heritage or other things like that?
yeah, I think so. I could say that. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
For
But yeah, okay. I made a lot of mistakes in this video. You can make a video. I'll actually Can you actually make a video of this hangout if you can upload it somehow?
sure, I can
Like
do that.
on your channel. Call it anything you want. I don't really care. You
Mhm.
know, call it 16 talks with like weird guy who just what goes on about things. Eh? It's like, like you know.
It's fine.
No, but I
Uh,
like that. I like talking to atheists. I think it's fun to have for them to have a different opinion than mine. I think it's way better.
yeah. I mean,
Better.
I'm just sort of wondering like how do you know that there is a God?
But
I
how do you
mean,
know that there's not a God?
well, I mean, I don't have sufficient evidence to
See,
substantiate
but
a belief in
see,
it.
but buddy, we both if we both don't have sufficient evidence from, we're both the ones who are claiming something, right? So
Hmm. But the
like that's
burden of
like
proof is on the person that claims it.
to me you can't say atheism is just the rejection because yeah, rejection doesn't just exist on its own. Like oh, we're just gonna reject something and then like it's gonna, you know, you accept something, because most atheists willing to agree to that, ironically, because it would make no sense, right, to them, right? But I'm saying that would make sense to me, because that's exactly how it goes. You don't have this whole thing where you believe something before evidence. I think evidence has a belief. It can be anything. Like, I don't know what's so like Matt Dillon, he's so adamant about religious beliefs, and he goes on about beliefs in general, and he's like, oh, if you have belief for evidence, it's fucked up. Oops. Oh, if you can have it the other way, it's somehow just different, you know, so it's better, it's a greater way. It's like, how is that any different? And when you try to say about hard solipsism, like, he tried in that debate with him aside Tim Brunking, right? Like, he didn't even answer it. He just, oh, I don't know, there could be no, I could have no argument or whatever to solve hard solipsism, but that doesn't mean there can't be. Huh, but Matt, you're just presupposing that there's already an answer, that it's no, that hard solipsism is true. Like, you say, there's another answer to it. Like, you can't just say you're open-minded to it, and then you're trying to, like, refute presuppositionalism and, like, size claim against yours. Like, you can't really get out of that. You know? You just, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And,
But I mean, I think that if you don't have like sufficient evidence to believe in something, then I don't think that there is any reason to believe in it. I mean,
yes, but if I was to say, oh, I believe it anyway, what if there's evidence and then it would make me not, like, that would be like saying, oh, the evidence would make you not believe it. Well, that's, you know what I mean? That's what I think the atheists think about theists. They think that theists just, oh, if the evidence confirms my belief, that makes my belief nothing. Like, as if that's the case. What about what about the unbelief? What if it's proved that God doesn't exist? Then what's atheism then? It's the statement God does exist, like we've been saying all the time. It's like, no, we've been saying the exact thing about theism, but you've been always categorizing everything. It's like, you know.
well, I mean, God is an unfalsifiable hypothesis. So I mean, and basically what I mean by that is if we
No God is either. Yeah.
yeah, if we find some way to test the metaphysical, then, you know, and then we don't find anything there, people can just say, oh, he's beyond the metaphysical. You know, you can always just come up with some other answer.
Okay. I don't support videos that say, hey, look, scientific evidence, proof, arguments that support God, you know, God's existence. I don't support any of those videos, because what they're trying to say, they're just trying to make, you know, atheists. They're not trying to help people actually get to, you know. So I'm saying that's not, for me, that's not helpful, and I don't, like, the whole thing about, like, all these, like, intellectuals, like, I'm sorry, most of people still are atheists, and it still needs to decline a lot more than people think, and that religion would ever actually decline into, because that would take about 800 years for it to really go down, because even then it would still be like it never gone down for the last few hundred years, you know, and when they get to that point, it still wouldn't go away. Like, people think religion's just going to go away, you know.
Well, I mean, we've seen a higher number of irreligious people, you know, growing throughout the world. In America, it's not very common, and it's like 9%, I think. But in other parts like Europe, it's pretty common.
You don't understand how having high religious populations can't, like, in turn create non-religious populations. So I already get, I don't see, to me, that's not out of place. So that's not surprising. I could see that coming any day. Like, oh, now there's a non-religious population. Like, that's what happens when you have a very religious population. Then they go right, they hit the other way, they hit the bucket and go the other way. That's not any, like, to me, because it's been a long time. Like, it's still very popular. Like, in those countries, like in Sweden and all that, it's been in the 80s and 90s and all that for a long time. It hasn't just been all of a sudden now there's, like, it's declining religion. It's totally opposite. It's like this whole secularization, like, hypothesis is just wrong, because it doesn't conform to the evidence. It's just against it completely in every way. Like, you know.
Well, I mean, in secular governments, in more secular areas, there tends to be less.
I want to make a point. Okay, you try to say having a state church in the country will make everything secular and all the rest. But if we don't, okay, so why are you surprised when you go to America that there's a lot of religious people? Oh, because we don't have a state church. Oh, forgot that. Like, you know, England. Like, why are they just surprised at? Don't they know that they don't have a state church, right? So they know they're going to have a higher population of religions. If they'd had their state church, like everybody, even them, they wouldn't have religion. There you go. That's your solution. Oops. But we don't want that, because that would mean we don't have a government. That's what secular governments have. They don't, not religious governments. Religious governments have, like, more secular life than theirs. It's actually the opposite. The secular governments have more religious public life than you think, actually. It's the opposite. It's completely bamboo opposite.
Well,
right?
I mean, that's because in Europe there's been a lot of moves towards secularism, especially in the European Union, and basically they're still trying to hold on to their cultural heritage with their state-run churches and stuff.
This whole thing about, like, sorry.
It's more geographic, I'd say, than
This whole thing, like,
political.
I mean, there's been a long whole arguments like, oh, all history, all religious countries, like, you know, back in the day, like really old, all bad because that's religious violence, that's just sectarian violence, that's just God believes killing each other, that's just all that's all crap. It's like, yeah, but we're better now somehow because we learned from killing yourself, but we did because that's for our ancestors, and that's somehow great because that's what evolution tells us to do, is to not kill or we ought not to. That's an ought to. That's not, oh, we have to because it's in nature. Like, where do you find your morality? In nature, society, or whatever? Like,
My morality comes from the rational contemplation of the consequences of my actions.
yeah. But don't you realize? Okay, don't you realize that I think the reason why we can do science is because like our Earth is like I want to say this, an open, you know, open system, right? We can actually have information receiving come from, you know, the outside, and we can go back and try to like discover and all that stuff. The reason we can do that is because we're actually created by a rational, intelligent, transcendental mind that gives us the ability to do that, reason and logic. So the reason why you can do, well, not the reason, the thing about you doing all this, like all your reason and all that, is because just something like that. So what you're doing is, the fact that you're poning theists is actually helping their case, really. Like, you're gonna pwn them to the last guy, but you don't realize how using all that analytical stuff and all this sort of thing is not helping the truth of atheism, it's helping the truth of theism, and actually, you know, despite arguing against theism, you know what I mean? And I don't have to argue against atheism because I don't want to do
Well,
that.
no, I think that there is a completely naturalistic explanation for why our intelligence and our cognitive
Yes,
awareness evolved. I mean, I think the theory goes something like this. Don't quote me, but it's basically there was a time in which our distant ancestors were monkeys, and we used to live a lot in trees, and it was in Africa, sort of. But then an environmental shift happened, and northern Africa got really hot, so we had to go off from the trees and go wander the desert. And because there was not that much water or food, we needed to quickly evolve to have higher cognitive function, because we need to learn to use tasks and tools so that we could hunt.
Okay, but I'm saying for evolution, like, that's a lot of the processes that you see. There's like you said, natural selection, all this sort of selection, right? That goes into the process more than just evolution. Because if you just went on a planet and say, let's evolve in the next, you know, billion years, that way you wouldn't want to care about the selection process like natural selection, right? Like, you wouldn't care. You'd be like, just what I'm saying is the who went, when, how went, all the questions of our nature. Evolution can't explain it or answer anything on its own. I know that evolution might make those questions, but that doesn't mean any of our beliefs are justified or true, right? Like, I'm saying, just because we wanted to survive doesn't mean we had to, or will have,
Well, I mean, everybody is constantly evolving, you know. I mean, and when you say natural selection, some people can fall into the trap of thinking, well, it's selection, there must be a selector.
No,
which is incorrect. Because,
I didn't even think that shit in that.
Yeah, well, I had thought that for a while when I was still religious. But basically, the thing is that natural selection is just simply the environment and the life forms changing to fit the environment. Think of it sort of like water running down a stream, and there's certain rocks. Now, for them to continue to grow and live on, they need to reproduce, and they need to go down the stream. So basically, when they hit the rocks, those are the ones that go extinct because they couldn't adapt. So basically, it's just sort of like a natural selector from the environment,
right?
Which species actually go through.
Survival of the fittest, yeah. But yeah. I'm wondering, evolution doesn't prove. Like, okay, I want to say this. Evolution doesn't prove there's an idea of it's saying nobody has the idea of evolution really innate, because that's what evolution is supposed to do. It's not supposed to be so obvious, right? Like, it's not supposed to be like, oh, I know it. I thought about evolution 20 years ago before I discovered it. Like, that doesn't really make sense, right? You don't think that about, like, evolution. That's way different. Like, it's not.
Well, evolution is a scientific theory over
but I'm saying
millions of generations. We wouldn't have any reason to know about it prior to its discovery.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, the scientists didn't literally create the theory of evolution, like, in 18 or whatever it was afterwards, right? Like, it didn't just, boom, now we've got evolution coming on, right? It's like.
No, I mean, evolution had always been happening, but it wasn't until like the 1880s when the theory of evolution was actually created.
Yes, but yeah, the history actually, the thought of natural selection actually went back to Aristotle and Plato and all those guys, Socrates actually, and Pythagoras and the old philosophers, right? So, yeah. I know it's funny when they talk about, like, oh, the Christians want to get rid of all the pagan, Greek, Roman, all that philosophy, but yet wouldn't it make sense if the Christians were so influenced by that, and then they destroyed it? Like the atheists, like that seems a contradiction. Why do they want to destroy something that they literally got everything from? Like, you know, and parts of like Judaism, when they did parts of I don't know, they got synagogues and all that happened like that. But like, no, you don't realize it. They're gonna destroy it because it's gonna be gone eventually afterwards when Christ returns, right? So I mean, that's not gonna be there anymore. The old kind of like, you know, the traditions of religions and all the sort of cults and the whatever that existed in the old ancient world is not going to be there, because what they assumed was they assumed that the world always existed, so they never even ended actually even to their own worldview, because they can't end, or they can't even begin, right? Like it's like saying a flower never started to like, you know, right? So, you know, never started to, you know, pollination never started, trees never grown or anything, right? It's just eternal. It's just always there, right? And that's why a lot of atheists have always believed that the universe itself has actually always been eternal, until Edwin Hubble's discovery of the
background micro radiation. But
shift.
you know, the thing is that whether or not you believe that the universe, or on a grander scale, the multiverse is finite or infinite, really depends on which interpretation of the universe you prefer. The universal model, which is basically that it was a huge explosion of energy and stuff like that, and then basically from that we cannot really know yet what happened before the Big Bang, or that it was just a universal bubble splitting up into another universal bubble, which is in the multiverse theory. So it depends. It depends on which interpretation you really go with.
I don't know what I go with. I mean, I don't really think, like, does it matter, like, as a theistic view or point of view or explanation, it would say, like, you know, God created the universe. I don't really care when, how, when, why, you know, how long, or, you know, like, I don't really think that matters, because that's like, that's going into scientific realm. That's going out from the theological kind of realm. So that's what I wouldn't really go anywhere else. You know? Even philosophical kind of, you know, it's kind of historical realm of actually happening, but, you know, that's what I'm saying. I just thought that, you know, if atheists think, you know, like stuff like theology and philosophy, oh, that's dead. We can add that to science, and science can give us empiricism and all the rest, like the philosophies that actually help science, and that can help us, you know. Ooh, you know, that's scientism, you know, actually. So.
Well, you know, a lot of scientists actually, they went out and they researched things, and they were trying to prove God's existence, and they ended up losing their faith while doing it, because they realized the things that they used to think were spiritual were actually just natural and could be explained scientifically.
Mental and material and physical and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, what I'm saying is, doesn't matter most scientists if they're atheists. Would that mean most philosophers?
Wait, what do you mean when you say scientism?
Scientism?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you know what that? You look it up. Actually, do you know what that means though?
I'm guessing it's some sort of worldview or philosophy based off of science.
No, it's not even that. It's something to do with like the relationship between science and religion kind of thing. Remember how it's like conflict thesis, and it's incompatibility. No, it's compatibility. Then it's the fourth one is like the neither friend nor foe, right, kind of thing. And I kind of take more the neither friend nor foe and the compatible, you know, kind of thing, both in the same sort of like, you know, blend, right? So it's kind of like goes right. So.
Because I've heard scientism be used by like creationists and stuff to basically just sort of group together like secular humanism and all of science together, you know.
Yeah, but don't you view the same thing about like religion and theism and all gods and all that? You see the same thing, you kind of wrap it around the same kind of cloth. Like it's kind of no different, really, right? Like it's all just this, and then they're saying, oh no, it's all just this. They're just saying the same thing, repeating the same thing that the atheists say. I'm sorry that they do that. They're going to go ahead and do that because that's what the atheists themselves think, the other atheists, when they do that. And they go ahead with these idea, like, I'm sorry, but that's just what they're going to do. I'm not responsible for people who charge scientism at people, you know. I'm just saying it is a valid thing to ask people that you actually do, yeah, like they are actually a scientism-based, you know, person, right? So, and they do accept scientism because they wouldn't, if they would say, oh, I could say other things that aren't in scientism, therefore I'm not a you know, I don't believe in scientism. Well, that doesn't excuse from being part of it just because you can make other judgments and all this shit. Like, oh, because it's separate from science. You're trying to like
Well, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and I just found that scientism is a term used to refer to the universal application of the scientific method. So.
Yeah, but you gotta look more. Here, I'll look. I'll actually I'll look at it. It's even worse. It's actually literally like every dogma, every like physics, chemistry, and all that biology. That's all literally like its own like mini dogma pretty much. It's not something that it's just a made up little. It's a cultural. Sometimes scientists write these things like no. It's actually what they've been realizing from the years from like the philosophers of science, not just like not from the scientists that go into like different things. It's the guys before that, like going into the science, like what I mean, like the philosophers.
So you believe that science is dogmatic?
Yeah, and I know in my video you tried to say that I said it was too secular. Yeah, I did say that, even though I didn't say that. You know what I mean, kind of thing.
Okay. Well, I mean, science is not dogmatic. I mean, science has usually been opposed by dogmatic institutions like the Catholic Church and other stuff like that, and is constantly revising itself and revising its methods in the face of new evidence. So I would really, really disagree that science is in any way dogmatic.
Are you saying something? I just got kicked out for some reason.
Oh, okay. Well, basically, what I'm saying is that basically, science has usually been opposed by dogmatic institutions, like the Catholic Church and religious institutions or things like that. So what I'm trying to say is that, like, in the face of new evidence, scientists will usually reevaluate their claims and then revise science as a whole. And because it can be constantly revised, it is one of the most undogmatic things that you could possibly go into.
Science is not a little boy baby that was kicked on by religion for years. That's like the stupidest narrative I've ever heard. Like, science was repressed because of the Dark Ages and all those look at that, poor science. Now science comes and shows its true face, and it scares everybody like crazy, and you have to realize it, or not, or we have a choice.
They imprisoned Galileo. So
yeah, they imprisoned Galileo because he got
wrong.
Not about scripture. That's not what it's about.
It took up until the death of John Paul II for the Catholic Church to finally accept creation, to finally accept evolution as fact. I mean, it's quite obvious that science has been opposed throughout history by religious institutions. Usually, there's several.
You're talking about yes, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the holy books, the prohibition books that are prohibited by the Catholic Church. That's got nothing to do with actually.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's what that was. His book was in that index. Talk about his book.
No, Galileo.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is what I'm talking about. Then. Okay.
Yes. But you're saying like, because all these people's books, they disagreed, and then they realized they had heliocentrism, which didn't contradict the scripture things. They thought it was about that, but it wasn't. It was about the what was it? Actually, it was about not the science at the time, but yeah, it was. Not the theology of the Bible at the time. It wasn't even about that. It's because they realized that when they Copernican monarchy, right, that came later, right? So, and got on Kepler and all that, right? But we're just trying to say people are automatically, when they have like views like philosophers and all that, and like different people, other people, not scientists, automatically their views are made wrong or right by science. Like like Descartes came along right along when Galileo was discovered, right? So it's like, but he's wrong because he was wrong in everything about biology and everything else because he had dualism and Cartesian mind, and so. No,
I mean, scientists can still be good scientists while still being wrong about things. I mean,
yes, but that's
it's the level of.
That's not caring about philosophical beliefs. So that's just disregarding them until the scientist is not doing any, like, let's say he's retired or something. Now he's going to talk about philosophy. Why does that matter? Oh, yeah, it's good because he wasn't doing that when he was doing science, as if there was any difference between both. Because he was doing both. He was doing philosophy before he did science because the philosophical method helped freaking the entire, independent of any science, the scientific method itself. So it doesn't matter. Reject it all you want, but there is a philosophical method of doing it. Like the same thing that science says about it. You can't have the tool of science saying this is the answer, this is just a tool. This is going further and saying we can literally chop up the world into what science has discovered and then go back on it and then give that to people. Like that's what I'm saying. The tool can't be the the freaking what's it? You know, the pure science is used to, right, to find out the natural world, to observe the natural world, and all that stuff, right? So it can't be like the end result. It's supposed to be at the beginning, how we go around and falsify and all this sort of stuff, right? And we go through it like scientific method, you know. But
Well, the scientific method is you could call it a philosophy, sure, mainly because people tend to like to use it outside of science also to sort of look at claims and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say that science is a philosophy. It's a field of
no,
study to understand the natural world.
of course you wouldn't say that, no, because that would be ridiculous.
Mhm.
See, I mean, I'm sorry, but you know, it just pains me when people go through life with this perspective, and then they try to understand other people like, oh, what's our approach going to be? All this to the religious? Let's go on. Like, okay, I have a point. Let's pwn them. The other guy says, hey, let's help them. The other guy says, either way, let's fuck it. We don't give a shit about anybody, so let's just not do any both. And then when there's no religious people left, it's like, how do we actually do anything? How do we have any basis for doing anything? Because now we're just, just atheism doesn't even exist anymore. So what are we even doing here now? What did we, what did anything actually exist before us? Because we have no really like memory of it happening before, because it's all just natural processes that helped us come along here now, and then we're just still evolving. But I guess they're trying to say there's a process, but yet there's nothing in the process of evolution. It seems like really not a process, but it is. It's like this blind chance to the whole thing. It's like kick the ball this way, it's gonna go that way. How far, and then how much, and that's all that, right? And it's like if it lands this way, you're probably all that stuff. It's all based on probability. It's really skewed, but like it's not really, the data is really confusing. Like it's not so hardwired to be in favor of evolution. There's a lot of stuff like that's actually been out there that intelligent design actually is becoming more and more like actually rational and viable and all that shit to actually hold as a scientific theory. Not what you're talking about in the literature.
Okay, well, let's talk
ID,
about intelligent design. Okay,
ID guys,
so
you call them, and you read the literature from a biased perspective. You're like, well, they did wrong, so that's just gonna help me anyway. Or why is it, if evolution is true, why do people have to believe it or not, or why do they have to talk about it or not? Why is there a dichotomy going on here? Evolution just be true and that's it. Nobody should have to debate it or anything, or have
well, no,
discussions.
that's because there's still a large portion of people that still don't believe in evolution.
Yeah,
Also, I'd like to talk about intelligent design because I really don't. When I look around, I see a world that came about by
yeah.
chance, partly, and also by the physical laws that were created at the time of the conception of the universe.
Yeah, but you don't
So
think how? Yes. Okay.
I'd like to hear how you could look around at the universe around you with all its flaws and stuff like that, and some of this and a lot of the stuff that's
because
really bad,
because
and how it's
design and
designed.
everything, design and complexity and all that is still part of how the natural process. It doesn't mean because it's natural that it's not designed.
Well, I
Like,
mean, yeah, I'm not. Well, I mean,
oh,
there's bioengineers, okay, and bioengineers are creating these mechanical limbs and they're creating these mechanical organs. So it's not too far-fetched for me to understand that a
okay.
cell could, in some analogous
We
sense,
have
work
been
like a
found the
machine.
first cell
But
here.
I know that it all works chemically in our bodies, and it's not really like a machine.
Okay.
And
I got jumped into a discussion. I only got like about 9% on my computer battery left, so it's hard.
okay.
I have to go. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just have to go somewhere else. But what I'm saying is that I still have to hold these concepts to be valid, even in that case. Like it's still, to me, it's not something that is irremovable or not. I don't use design just to put it anywhere or not. Like I think most atheists think theists just use God to put him anywhere. Like why is that flower pot not there in that? What's hiding in that corner? Oh, it must be a demon or something. Like as if people just use it. If they did, they wouldn't even be. It wouldn't matter because the atheist already knows that that's crap. So like. To me, it's no big deal. Like it's like watching The Exorcist to be like, "Tja, that's not scary." And then you have a nightmare about, "Oh, is it not scary now? Is it?" You see, people don't get scared immediately when they're born. Nobody gets scared. Nobody learns to get scared. They don't get scared, then they get scared. Okay, honestly, you think fear doesn't come before bravery does? Okay, bravery comes before fear does. You get scared into something. You don't get, startled or something. Like, I'm just saying, it doesn't go. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so do you have to go?
It's 8%. I don't know. It might shut off, but don't worry, it'll still broadcast. Like, it'll still save it, but I could just end the broadcast right now if you want.
Yeah, you can just end it.
Okay, just no. You can have a closing argument or whatever, just before it goes.
Okay. Well, basically, if the flying spaghetti monster doesn't exist, then why are the planets so perfectly shaped like a meatball?
Haha, got me. Just kidding. Why does anything else like this planet spaghetti monster not exist? Same point. No. Understand here. Oh shit, it's
Okay.
good.
Nice
Okay, buddy.
talking to you.
Yeah, see you, buddy.
See ya.
See you, Brexter. Bye, yeah.